A big change in the race for president in 2024. After just one win on Super Tuesday yesterday, Nikki Haley has dropped out of the race, leaving the former president as the presumptive Republican nominee.
WGN political analyst Paul Lissing is here to talk about the impact of Haley's decision. Hello, first of all.
Good to see you.
And where do these supporters, where are her supporters going to go?
Well,
Trump, Biden, and how do they get them?
Well, that's a good question. Let me take one step back, which is to say the fact that Haley announced earlier in the week that she would be in South Carolina, and when asked by the networks, what are you going to be? There's no primary in South Carolina. Well, that's my home. To me, the message was, and I'm dropping out. Exactly. Might as well do that from home. As far as where the voters go, you know, Micah, they've been doing lots of surveys of those people, and there are a group of them, about 20 to 30%, who say they will not vote for the nominee of the party, of course, meaning former President Trump. It doesn't mean they go Biden. So they could be like others who aren't happy, looking for a third party, and they may just stay home. But I think the effort for former President Trump is going to be, if he wants to get them, he's going to have to work for them. And in a lot of the speeches, he did a rally last week where he said, we're getting rid of the Mitt Romneys, we're getting rid of people like him. That doesn't sound very open tent to me. So if you need those Haley-type voters, who might be Mitt Romney-type voters, you want to bring them back in if you can.
Do you think she's going to come out and make a formal endorsement? She was saying, you know, she was congratulating him, saying she wishes him well. And the other question is, as well as Trump did, eliminating all of his other Republican opponents, do you think that's a sign of where things are going into the general, or is that a different animal altogether?
Well, as far as will she eventually support him, she may just stay quiet about it. I mean, today would have been the day to do it when she dropped out. It also would have been hypocritical for her to do it for the way she's handled this. And her comment, quoting Margaret Thatcher, basically to say, you know, you don't always have to get in line and follow everybody. So maybe she'll just fade away for a while. The second question was...
Yeah, I mean, as well as Trump did, getting rid of all of his Republican opponents.
Yeah.
What happens?
Well, for me,
November?
the telltale sign was Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell getting behind Donald Trump today. Here Trump, went after, in a racist way, McConnell's wife, and did it. Mitch McConnell, who in the past, after January 6th, said, impeachment's not the avenue here, but the courts will take care of him, and today he supports him. That, to me, is more telling than how things will shape up in the general. Basically, the entire Republican Party, quote-unquote entire, is basically lining up behind Trump. He's going to have all their support. The question is, what will the Democrats do about that, and how will they fight back?
Yeah, how will they fight back?
Well, we're going to find out. We'll be together for the State of the Union, because we're going to carry that, and it's going to be really interesting. You know, we could predict the topics that Joe Biden will talk about. I mean, he will talk about the border.
Well, does the State of the Union really matter? Does that bring in a lot of votes, you think?
It will be the largest audience.
Okay.
Now, whether that triggers votes, Mike, I don't know.
That's the question.
It will bring in the largest audience that Biden is liable to have from now going forward. The question will be, does he get up there and sound very presidential and say, we must do this and this is important and bring me this bill like presidents do? Or will he be a little more direct and say, Republicans, stop blocking this, and make his political points? I bet he's being advised to do it. Joe Biden is a traditionalist. He might fight that. It's going to be really interesting when we're together Thursday night to see what road he takes.
I want to keep talking about the race here, but we also want to talk about what happened in the Chicago front. Bring Chicago Home, the initiative to fight homelessness in our city. It's going to get counted on the ballot. Remains to be seen if it'll have an effect.
So here's what people aren't talking about, which is why did the appellate court reverse their decision? They didn't reverse the judge in terms of you're wrong about the way you see this referendum. That wasn't what they did. They said we don't have the jurisdiction to deal with this. That's non-substantive. What they basically said was the legislature gets to do this. We can't touch the legislature. Not so sure about that. That's what courts do. They're a check on the legislature. So the question will be whether the proponents of taking it off the ballot will go to the Illinois Supreme Court. That leans Democratic, so we have to assume that might support what the appellate court did. But that would be the last and final step in the process. We'll see if they take it. My guess is they will.
So it's not over yet, then?
It may not be over yet.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
And you're going to be with us tomorrow, as you said.
Looking forward to it.
Talking about the State of the Union address. This is President Biden's third State of the Union. He'll try and rally support from the American people ahead of the upcoming election. Senator Katie Britt of Alabama will be giving the Republican response. We'll be talking with congressional scholar Suzanne Chod from North Central College ahead of the speech tomorrow on the WGN News at 5. And you can watch the full speech right here on WGN TV, on WGN Plus on your smartphone, or at WGNTV.com starting at 8 o'clock.